October 17, 2024, and I'm calling this meeting of the Topsham Select Board to order. We are broadcasting from the Topsham Holiday Russell Reading Room. Next, please rise for the pledge of allegiance. The pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any roll call, please?
Roland Tubbs.
Here.
Marie Brilliant. Ann Callahan. Here. Brian Holmes.
Here.
Matt Nixon.
Seated.
Just, Marie Brilliant.
Yeah, excuse me.
Oh, thank you.
All right, our manager's report.
Good evening. Early voting is available in the Donald Russell Meeting Room during Town Hall's regular business hours. Through October 31st. On October 31st, it will be open till 7 p.m. As of Tuesday, about 2,000 ballots, or 25% of our voters, had already voted in person or requested an absentee ballot. And Linda says, vote early, but not often. On Saturday, October 26th, between 5 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. is the return of Topsham's Trunk or Treat event at the Topsham Fair. Registration information is available on the front page of the town website. There's a meeting to accept input on the proposed Merry Meeting Trail, which would involve the conversion of railroad tracks that run from Topsham through Bodenham, Richmond, and Gardner. It will be at the library on Tuesday, October 29th at 6 p.m. And finally, Central Maine Power will be here hosting a community connection event here on Thursday, November 7th from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. to assist people with their bills, provide information on assistance programs that are available, give advice on how or lower costs, etc. That's it.
Thank you. We have no board committee updates tonight. The next item is public comment. Any other correspondence? I believe a number has received two pieces of correspondence from an individual just having an opinion on town business. And just, basically just an opinion, there's really nothing, so a lot of things in general to discuss, so,
Was this in reference to recording meetings?
yes.
Okay. Just making sure it's the same one we're referring.
Adjustments to the agenda, we are going to be tabling item 2483. Due to a scheduling issue. All right, consent calendar, approval of minutes of the regular select board meeting of October 3rd, 2024. That motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as recorded.
Second. Moved and seconded, all in favor? Motion passed, carries forward.
You asked me to remind you to.
Oh, yes,
Ann and Matt.
the,
First, I made the motion, he seconded it.
yeah, yes, right.
Thank you. Well, he wanted me to remind him to announce.
Okay.
And she does it like 4 times, she's gonna get sick of it.
Still didn't do it. I was asked to remind him.
The excitement that having this meeting. All right, we have public hearing 2481, consideration of any appropriate action on the MMA new general assistance ordinance. Appendices A through H.
Linda.
Oh, yes.
There you go.
All right.
You want to give us a short summary?
Good evening, Linda Dumont. Every October, the state of Maine requires us to adopt the new annual ordinances, updates, for general assistance. And this year I provided you with what they are. They've gone up the overall maximums have increased about 3%. So I'm basically just here asking you to adopt those. And, any questions?
It's really a small amount. It's what, $323 more this year than last
Yeah,
year.
it's
So it's not
very
very
small.
big increment.
Yeah. Very small.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
we have a motion.
It was
Oh, we got to vote first.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Wait,
I move that we accept the state's revised general assistance amounts for 2024 and 2025.
motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded, moved by Matt, seconded by Ray. All in favor? Oh, is there some stuff going on with it?
No, because you did the names after, we were like thinking you weren't gonna do them. but you did.
No. I'm still nervous as it catches on. All right. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Next item, 2482, consideration of any appropriate action.
I had a question under old business.
Sure.
Did we get any response from, the application for a license to have an extended extra license for, selling with?
For Market Basket, it is still being processed.
Okay.
I guess the Market Basket got back in probably like a month ago or something, so they checked on it with the state, and they said, "Oh, this may take longer than expected," I can't remember the reason, but
Okay.
it's still going on.
Thank you.
All right, on to new business, 24-82, consideration of any appropriate action on a proposal to plant pollinator flower seeds on landfill caps.
And I'd like to call Josh up to give a quick update on the project.
Good evening, Josh Franklin, town planner. So, share my screen here with you guys.
You can pull that mic up so you don't have to bend over. There you go.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give you guys a quick recap. You may remember at a select board meeting in August, our intern and planning department, Ezekiel, they had proposed a wildflower meadow trail to be placed in the Topsham transfer station. So just I'm just gonna give a quick recap on that. So of course, Izzy has returned to classes, and so the project contacts for this the WME or Ed Karen replaced her today. All right, so quick recap, 1994, the Maine DEP closed landfills as part of a landfill closure and remediation program. And we do have landfills that were a part of that process. So the sites currently are contaminated with PFAS, which are forever chemicals, very all over these days. So the landfills are currently capped. And so, you know, they're totally safe to walk around and move around, but you don't want to break the caps, basically. So Izzy was tackling the question of how these areas can be used. And so one of the things that was looked at is, you know, how is the transfer station currently being used by the public? And right now the transfer station doubles as a recreational area. We have walking trails, fishing ponds, ATV networks, pump tracks, a canine training course, and it serves as an educational opportunity for waste management, composting, and so Izzy and with the agreement of the planning department, that it would be a great idea to propose a meadow path that would loop around the 10-acre mound landfill, and that it could provide public recreation and it would benefit native ecology. And we had the support of our public waste, our solid waste manager. So you'll see here, this is the landfill. So this is the Topsham transfer station here. See the composting area there. We have Little Eddy and Big Eddy Pond. And so this is the landfill area where we're going to propose the meadow path. This is kind of a rough sketch of what the area would look like. Currently, there is parking, trail parking right here. So traffic could come in. I believe that they need to circle around, park here, and they can enter the meadow trail right around here. And this is about what it would look like. So Ed had actually he had mowed some paths into the field to just to get an idea of like where the trails would be. And so we have these two images just showing like what's currently there right now. And of course, it's right now this is just the pre-existing grasses. So the logistics of this, so the path is basically the way it would work. So we would a path would be mowed over the landfill, and then 10 feet, give or take, on either side of the trail would be seeded with native pollinator plants. So ideally, it would have been that the that the area beside the path was tilled, and then you put the seeds on. Of course, because we have the cap, we don't want to break the cap on the landfill. So so the best option here is to just cut the grass down to the lowest setting and to seed it there. Because of that, we want to really make sure that we're applicating the seeds generously to make sure that we get what we like from this. So ideally, we would sow seeds in late fall. If we can't manage to get it in fall, we can always seed in the spring. They're just the reason why it's more ideal in fall is just because there are some seeds that like a period of cold stratification to germinate better. But it would be fine if they were in the spring as well. And then again, ideally, there would be a reapplication in 1 year. And then basically the years after, it would just be like, you know, we'd be looking at where we are. If it's doing great, then it'll continue to seed itself and it wouldn't need to be reseeded anymore. But it was just, you know, getting it established is kind of what we'd be looking at the beginning. So already the landfill is currently mowed, I believe it's twice a year.
Once now.
Okay, once now. And then, so that would continue. The only ongoing maintenance really would be that there would be weekly mowing of the path to keep it accessible to the public. And so you can see here some estimates of cost. So we need about 100 pounds of seeds, and so this is the year one cost estimate for the seeds. And then 2 trail signs, we got an estimate from banana banners at about $75 each. So we're looking at a total first year cost estimate of about roughly $5,900. So Izzy had left us with she had contacted the Maine Bee Wellness group, and they expressed interest in providing a grant should we formally submit one. And so basically it's a nonprofit group. They offer between $500 to $4,000 for nonprofit groups, and that includes town conservation commissions and government organizations that align with their mission. And their mission, while it's generally geared towards like beekeeping, they also support activities that support Maine's native bee and pollinator populations, which is what this would be geared towards. And so really, I'm just leaving here. We're seeking select board approval to move forward with the implementation of the project, where the next step would be to support to submit the grant request to Maine Bee Wellness on behalf of the town of Topsham. So we'd be requesting $4,000, and so that's what I got for you.
2 questions.
Yeah.
You said it was gonna cost, oh, I lost the slide. That's okay. thank you, I can't read the number from there, 5750. But that it had to be reseeded again in a year, is that gonna be the same 5750, or is it?
So we could assume that that would be the cost. Another option, would be, let's say we're looking at finances. That would be what I call double application of seeds. We could do like a single application of seeds next year. But the way that I'm presenting it now is I would say that we could assume that it would be about the same cost next year if we were to.
And my second question is, who's actually going to spread these seeds?
So.
Is that someone we?
Is that our guy?
If I could interject on that.
I didn't know. if you did.
We did a tour of Paxwell as a, same concept, only
Okay.
a lot smaller and not as pretty as what we feel ours is going to be.
Of course.
That just looks like a field of weeds, but which really is what we're creating, but we're making nice little trails along that. And we have to mow these caps every year anyway, just to keep things from growing through that cap, same cap. So the DEP's recommendations is like stick plants, so let it go weed, basically. Well, if we can kind of create something into something that we already have right now with our recreation abilities out there, we can kind of add this little thing. And basically, rather than spreading the whole field, Josh and I were talking, we thought it would be a good idea to mow our path, create the path, and then seed 10 feet or so out from both sides, all the way around. In hopes that does take right off and spreads from there and goes on out. So eventually it will hopefully encompass the whole cap area in the future thought process. If we need to reseed then and it's taking off and people are enjoying it, it'd be worth the investment to throw a few more in there. I'm also working with some people from the Gardens of Glow there, boy, Botanical Gardens. I had a contact there that was given my name, and hopefully she's gonna contact me with perhaps some more avenues for seeds and whatnot, so. It's kind of we've got a lot of nice things going on out there, and I think this is just one nice addition to it. And it gonna make everything go good, and it doesn't cost us a lot mowing it. For me, I gotta mow it anyway, as far as bush hogging goes, and to mow the paths, it's not that hard. It's a quick run, so.
And will there be any park benches along the path?
All depends.
You want to sponsor one?
That all depends. Hunter does some, so you could possibly put this. The idea was so that, like at one point you could see it's like a little lollipop in the middle. Maybe they could go up and they could have like a little sitting area, so. Cause on top where that is, you can oversee almost the whole area as well, the transfer station, and working area, the trails, the ponds and everything, so. And on a nice evening like yesterday or today, you could hear the gunfire from the shooting range. Okay, that's all I have.
So the reason we have this on your agenda is you're responsible for the manager of the town, so we want to make sure that you're bought into this before although the grant doesn't require a match, we want to make sure that you're happy with us before we send the grant in. And then it could well be that the grant isn't gonna cover the cost. We'd come back to you at a future date and propose that the money be spent from the recreation impact fee fund to pay for the rest of it.
So we just need authorization to move forward.
So it is, okay.
Mark, could my company donate the remaining 1,900 and that would be a conflict of interest?
I don't see any objection to that. The board would have to accept it. Thanks.
Yeah. That's not a good grant. I'll do it up. It's just for Ed.
Can't beat that.
Did you guys have any other questions for me?
I don't.
What percentage of the seeds are you assuming are getting eaten by the birds?
Oh,
I don't have a number for you, but that's baked in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. A little extra.
We do a lot of money.
We're hoping that, with the late fall application, hopefully we can get some precipitation. That would hopefully shoot that into the ground. That's the goal.
Do you have any idea what type of plants you want to put in there?
Yes, so we do have a native plant. seed mix, that is, that we were planning on specifying. It's all completely native, and it's not just like US native plants, they're like native to New England, so they are native to Maine here. And are all like all kinds of different flowering plants, you know, bee balm and black-eyed Susan. Oh, did 2 different types of milkweed, all kinds of great stuff.
And milkweed's key.
Yes, gotta keep out those monarchs coming up. So,
The other theory behind seeding in the fall or in this before winter is that rain and snow or farmers fertilizer will push those seeds into the ground, so there will be not so much appetizing for the spring.
Yeah.
It should germinate.
That's a good point.
Clarification, we don't get snow anymore.
This is true, we have moisture.
Moisture.
Okay,
So I move that we authorize town to proceed with the grant application to the what was the name of the organization again?
Maine Bee.
Maine bee wellness.
Maine Bee Wellness.
Maine Bee Wellness for $4,000.
I second.
motion and second, all in favor?
Who seconded the motions?
Motion by Matt, second by Ann. Thank you. 4-0. Motion carried.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a great idea. All right, 2483 is tabled. On to 2484, consideration and any appropriate action on the reporting of Topsham board and committee meetings.
I'll go ahead and get us started with that. It was actually my request to put it on the agenda. About 2 meetings ago, I was concerned because we weren't able to pick up sound really well on the recordings, and also, it was a little blurry on the recordings, and so I wanted to know what we could do, and we talked about this owl. And since that time, I've had a chance to talk to Mark, and there is a newer owl version available. I don't know if that would solve the problem, but there's 2 things we have to talk about. One is, making sure that the meetings that we do record are understandable. That's one issue, and then the other one is, in the eyes of transparency, what meetings do we want to have recorded and which ones are currently recorded now, or any others that we want to have recorded. So that's what I'm throwing out there. I don't know if anyone has any comments or questions.
My
Thoughts?
first question is, how many requests do we get more recordings of workshops, for example?
Well, actually, yeah, I don't know what the actual, that's not the issue, isn't how many people are asking for them. I know as a member of the select board, I want to go and I can't attend every single meeting. There's just too many of them. And I want to be able to watch workshops online so that I know what's happening as a member of the select board. So I'm not asking on behalf of the town itself. I'm asking on behalf of myself and for the town also, but I'm the one who initiated that request. Thoughts, anyone, comments?
My question is there a reason not to record meetings? I mean, I feel like there's a staff member at every committee, every workshop that push a button. But that I feel like everybody's trained on how to start recordings. Is that true?
Maybe
Yeah.
I'll take that from there.
Yeah, sure.
So
Please.
So traditionally, and some of this is before my time, but what Topsham did is the select board and the planning board meetings were recorded in this room using the TV studio that's in the basement. That has cameras, and they had an operator down there, so someone's being paid to do that. They get put on the local access channel, and in certain times they get replayed each week, so you could watch them. Once COVID came and things went hybrid and Zoom started getting used, I think the library had the owl first, and like, that's a pretty good piece of technology. Why don't we get one for the town? And then if you're have some technical skills, it's relatively easy to do it. And so we started recording more than just select board and planning board meetings, and putting them on the town's YouTube channel, and we've got playlists for different committees. We have some meetings right now that, like, for instance, the bike pedestrian committee is not being recorded because of the fact the meetings are across in the public safety building. And Chief Hagan is a wonderful police chief and has a lot of wonderful things he does, but he's not technically savvy enough to deal with getting it all going So we have other meetings like Linda serves the history committee. Those meetings aren't recorded. My concern with, let's say, we're gonna start using the TV station again and putting someone downstairs, is we haven't budgeted for a person or a staff member to do that. And if we had say a mandatory policy to record all our meetings of every committee, I don't think we could do it, because there's times when we have two committees at once, so, using only the TV station. So as far as recording workshops, for the most part, that would be relatively easy, because usually the people having the workshops are the planning board or the select board. And the planning department staff, Josh and Sky are no issues running this equipment, nor do Jeff and I. Usually planning or admin staff are at those meetings. Some of the other meetings, it might also, in addition to costing money to having to get another staff member there or do some of these things, not quite sure if we get a lot of useful information out of watching a recording of the history committee. They'll get together, talk about the town's history, maybe prepare some archives or something, but nothing that I don't think you couldn't capture adequately in minutes. So I talked to Justin, the assessor, about the Board of Assessment review or appeals. And he said that if their appeal were to be challenged, what it gets challenged on isn't the record of what's discussed in the meeting, but just the final decision. We think this house is worth whatever amount. So he said it really wouldn't be helpful for an appeal process. Not that it would hurt either, because they let people, if you want to record the meeting, they can. But he doesn't think it would be a beneficial thing. So I think to try to use our resources as responsibly as possible, I personally don't think we want to go back to the days of using the TV studio downstairs. Now, with that said, I think when we're in the conference room with the owl, it works good. In here, there's some difficulties, some of which may be resolved with this newer owl. It's around $2,000. It has better video resolution. So to the extent that maybe I'm a little blurred on the screen right now, it might help with something like that, just because it's got better resolution. And if we upgraded to a newer owl that, the people already know how to use it, you can use that still, and we'd still have these other ones. And if we have multiple meetings, we've got a couple owls. So I guess my thoughts are, it wouldn't be a big deal to record workshops. I don't think we necessarily want to have a mandatory recording policy of every meeting in town, though. I think we probably should just pick certain committees that are important, either for what people are watching or listening to or something. Because let's say we create a policy that says all meetings have to be recorded, and then we can't do one for whatever night, for whatever reason. If someone's say looking to sue the town or accuse us of wrongdoing, they're gonna say, oh, look, you violated your policy. So I think if we're gonna have any type of policy, we need to carefully choose which committees so that we can make sure whatever we have policy is doable.
Do we have a policy now?
No,
We don't have a policy now, so we're kind of recording out of our kindness of our hearts
exactly.
for now.
The only thing the law requires is that we have a record of the meeting, which minutes are a sufficient record. So,
One of the conveniences about having a video recording is that minutes are often summarized in brief, whereas the recording gives full detail of full discussions and not just a summary in a set of minutes. I never intended for us to go the TV station route. In fact, I didn't even know we had one down there until you told me. So that was not my issue, but even like the community center committee, half the community or part of the community is for it, the other half is not. It would be nice to know what's happening behind the scenes there. They are reporting now, but I don't know that they record workshops. And so, I personally would like to see us record all the meetings we can. Like you said, the history committee is not going to be, something that wouldn't be handled in the set of minutes. But can't we set up a request or a policy that says, as if possible, so that we're not breaking any policy? If we just put in the wording, to the best of our ability, if we are able to, we will attempt to copy them. What are your thoughts? I'm just throwing this out here.
I think the one scenario that might be a challenge is, like Mark mentioned, if you have two meetings on the same night. And you have limited equipment and or individuals who can actually run it, so. It would be, I think you'd have to say, you know, what's the prioritization, is it first come, first served, or is there some other method to follow? Or should that be encountered?
We currently have 2 owls, is that correct?
Correct.
And if we upgraded to the newer one, we then have 3 owls, so equipment might not be an issue. The issue might be who can't do, you know, who is not comfortable, we don't say they can't, but they're not comfortable recording. I mean, like the bicycle pedestrian committee, if they don't want to record it, you know, I can see that it's not, you know, that doesn't impact all residents because some people are, well, not cyclists or whatever, although they are pedestrians perhaps. So I don't know. I just wanted to bring this up. We've not talked about this. And I just think it would be good to have access. I know I can't go to every meeting, and it would be nice to know what's happening and what's going on. And it's really hard to find stuff on the YouTube channel. It's like it's all mixed up and intermixed, different years and different stuff. You have to almost know what they're called to find them.
So if I recall, one of our previous board members' opinions on this was this particularly during COVID, when, you know, everyone was throwing pitchforks at each other, that having Zoom enabled that kind of behavior, because you didn't have to deal with someone sitting next to you when you're insulting them. And so his thought was getting people or encouraging people to come into the room together was a better solution than allowing people to flippantly tune in for 5 seconds, you know, drop an insult bomb and then log right off. That was sort of his rationale in terms of just like trying to get people to talk to each other, or hear another person's opinion. With that said, it's not COVID anymore. We're certainly much more vicious and nasty now than we were then, which is kind of hard to believe, but here we are in 2024.
I know, I haven't heard anybody give a nasty comment over the internet
This is a
since I.
recording, it's not interactive, right?
You weren't a member of the
And
board.
we do have a policy on hybrid meetings, you know, which is in effect, so. It's the, and in fact, that policy says if you have a hybrid meeting, it has to be recorded, because of the state law, but, we don't. So I think we don't have a policy of recording meetings in general, we do have a policy of when you can have a remote meeting, basically.
So I need to finish my thought, if I may.
Please.
With that said, it's not COVID anymore. And I have no issues with recording. I think workshops are a valuable thing to record. And planning board, select board, possibly board of appeals. But I can't envision, like Mark said, historic district, some of these smaller committees that meet very rarely.
What about the finance committee?
Well, that's usually broadcasted anyway.
No,
So normally the finance committee is meeting at the same time as you guys, because it's a joint meeting. They'll usually like to meet alone once or twice, just to go over their thoughts to see if they diverge from staff or the select board. Those staff doesn't go to, because we don't want to feel like we're intruding on their discussions, because they like to have it on their own. Still a public meeting and people could go in person, but if we were there sitting there recording it, I think they might not be that comfortable with that. They then report back to you their results, so it's not like their results are kept secret from everyone. They'll come back and, you know, I think the issue was a couple of years ago, there was, I think, a part-time person, the public works budget was, they differed in opinion, but they came back to this group and then everything actually got put in the town warrant. So I'm not sure if we need to record the finance committee in their own discussions, because pretty much all their meetings are jointly with you, which they get recorded for that reason.
So let's just go with Ann's option of, to the best extent practicable, committees and workshops will be recorded. It covers, I think, all bases.
and if they want to exclude the bicycle and pedestrian committee and the history committee, you know, we can exclude those if we all agree to that. What are your thoughts?
I have a couple of thoughts on the matter. One thing that I'm hearing is that these are public meetings. Everything is made to be public, even when they're not recorded. or when we don't attend them. And so the information is public, or should be public, shouldn't be hidden per se. Transparency is also a big part of what we do as servants to the public. I mean, we're a tax-funded organization. We serve the town of Topsham. They pay everything that has to do with our town. In doing so, it's nice to be able to hold that transparency with those recordings, whether people watch them or not, just for the sake of if people want to follow up on something. Or, you know, a lot of times it could be something that happens 3 months down the road where something happens and there's an impact and someone says, oh, but we didn't talk about that in this meeting, and you can go back and clarify a point that might have been made or not made, or lots of different reasons. Ultimately, the transparency piece is for me a big thing. One of the thoughts that I was having on prioritizing which meetings to record would be, in my mind, if there was, I would say, a significant financial impact on within the committee. And I don't know if the wording is right, but I would say a community center is a significant financial impact potentially to our town. Something like that, with having a lot of information and the steps that they're going through, potentially having a massive bond, potentially if we don't get grants or other means of raising funds. It would be nice to have those meetings recorded, or other instances where the history committee, they're not having a significant impact on the financial decisions in the town of Topsham. You know, there's no money flowing through that committee potentially ever at all. Going back to the community center committee, there potentially could be. So it would be, in my mind, relevant to record things in that nature that could potentially have an impact on the public here in Topsham down the road. And it's more about future thinking. It's not about what we need right now. It's about, in the future, are we going to be able to look back at this and really make the decision and show we've done all of this work to prove that we're doing the right steps. Ultimately, when somebody down the road 5 years from now says, oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, and we're like, oh, yeah, we did. That can't happen without recording. And I do echo the sentiments of Ann's from reading minutes. A lot of them are shorthand and brief sentences, but there's a lot more between the lines in a lot of the meetings that happen, just speaking from experience and attending those meetings. And it would be nice to go back and be able to record those and potentially watch them or listen to them if I haven't attended. And my example for me personally is when Ann and I were voted in last year, and it's getting to that point where it's been about a year, it would have been nice to go back and just listen to everything, just to catch up on some of the information that we had missed. And maybe a new board member might be looking to do the same thing down the road to update themselves on what's happening in the town or what's been happening in the town so that they can make better decisions, not just on a whim or personal beliefs.
I don't think anybody's against what you're saying. I just caution against being very specific, like the planning board talks about things that have significant impact on the community, but they might not be financial. But down the road, they could have indirect impacts. This comprehensive planning implementation committee is doing a recode, which has huge ramifications for the town, but none of it's a financial decision. So I think just including the language that you said, which is to the extent practical. And then maybe identify 3 or 4 top committees that, you
We
know,
don't think needed.
we already record.
Oh.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, we already have a procedure for recording, because I just wouldn't wanna, we might be missing something that would have a massive impact on the town.
Yeah, and I was just thinking more of a priority based, you know, if we had a conflict where we couldn't record a meeting and it was either history or CPIC, you know, like clearly in our mind it's CPIC, but I mean, there's other instances that I'm not going over. Financial was just one of the impacts I would have, but I would agree that planning board and CPIC, they all have great impact on the town. And when it has a great impact on everybody, those are the ones that I think. I'm just agreeing with what you're saying, basically, but wanting to get my thoughts out.
Do we want to consider getting the upgraded owl?
I'm down with that, yeah.
We take it out of our computer budget, so we can do that.
I mean, that seems like the one that would bother us, just because the quality issues.
and see if that solves it down. One of the things that wasn't discussed here is the owl only picks up the sound in the room. And unless you, and like, Jeff turned down the volume because it was so loud for Mark, but I have not heard the sound in this room tonight. It needs to be loud enough that it's coming out of the speakers. And we need, and if it's not, then it's not gonna record good on the sound. So how do we manage getting it loud enough so people can hear in the audience and we can, and the owl can pick it up? So
Maybe can we ask Jeff to speak for a minute? or-
can you, yeah,
Sure. Jeff, answer that question.
Yes, well,
He's been experimenting, so.
oh, you've been experimenting.
I
That's
can't.
one too.
Jeff Emerson, Assistant Town Manager. We have been playing with the sound
Okay, I can't hear you over the sound system.
because
Can you guys hear? me?
I can hear myself.
Yeah, I
over
can
the
hear
sound
some
system.
stuff.
Oh, you can?
Out here, we can hear you very clear.
Oh,
The problem that I think we're having tonight is we found some adjustments downstairs and upstairs. We made some adjustments before the meeting because we're trying a few things. And what's happened is Mark is too loud. And so but Mark has a very a voice that carries very well. And so the volume is just all inclusive volume. So we turned it up to try to catch everybody and he overpowered the mic. And so you started to get that distorted. So I went over there, turned it down to try to cut that off, but we can still hear everything out here. So this meeting will be very interesting to listen to live or recorded and see how it ends up.
are there any speakers on this end?
That's a speaker right there, next to the light.
Okay,
But I would say from the audience, your mics are louder tonight than they have been in the past, in my opinion.
but is it picking up on the owl?
I would say, I would guess that it would have to.
Does it spin and turn as someone's talking?
It's got a camera at the top that picks who it focuses on based on who's talking.
Okay. I'm not sure. We can test this out tonight by watching the video
See,
later.
right now it's got you and me and Jeff, because the three of us have been talking.
Oh, okay, I see. So we can tell by the video what's coming up. We also talked about the possibility, Mark and I, about getting an arm extension so the microphone can get closer to people's mouths.
And the good thing, the upgrade of the owl will allow you, if you want to, there's a mic extension for the new owls. That won't fit on the existing owls. And it gives you, I think it was a 14-foot extension cord with a remote mic. And so if we were having a dead spot, we could pop an additional mic in that spot.
And that might solve the entire problem, so
Okay.
maybe you want to just start there. And you know the model number and all that.
Yep.
What did she say?
It's a barred owl.
So there's two issues on the table. I don't know which one you want to address first, Roland. One is, do we to purchase the upgraded owl? And the second issue is, do we want to say generically, you know, and whenever possible, excluding the history committee and the bicycle and pedestrian committee, if we're really gonna do that, whenever possible, to record both meetings and workshops.
Here's my thought, because I don't think we want to pass a policy without something in writing. So as far as the owl, I've got the consensus of you'd like us to purchase it, we'll just do it. You don't have to take a special vote because we've got computer money we can
Okay.
spend. As far as the policy,
We'll write it up
I've
for
taken
next
some
time.
notes, and so I could put something in your packet for next time.
Sure.
And then at the next
That
meeting, you
works.
guys can talk and massage words or whatever.
That works. I just want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to talk about this. Thanks.
No, this is a very good topic. I'm glad we have discussions here. So, I mean, you're right. I mean, we need to be as transparent as possible and make these meetings as accessible as possible to the citizens of the towns.
So this means we only have 3 more weeks of communication and secrecy, correct? That we should get it all out of our system now.
So we're not going to take any action on this motion tonight.
Correct.
There's no action taken. Thank you. Okay, item 2485, consideration of any appropriate action on a statement encouraging as much multimodal use as possible on the proposed Merrimack Trail.
This is my item.
That might be.
Mark, did you have anything you want to say first?
don't think so.
Alright, so, let's see, back when this whole thing started, I think I explained at the last meeting, municipalities were required to generate a resolution. That would then be submitted with other municipalities' resolutions along the trail, or proposed trail. To get DOT to start the rail use advisory council process, RUAC. In our resolution, we were very, very clear, that we wanted multi-use to include. Not just non-motorized use and not just humans either. Or my particular piece was a rail and trail, so side by side. That language did not make it into the document that eventually made its way to the Commissioner of Department of Transportation. And I guess my rationale now is because they're having, or the RUAC, or excuse me, the Trailblazers are having these community outreach meetings, which started a couple weeks ago, actually. Now I think Bodenham had one a while back. That's one in Gardner last night. Now would be the time, at least in my opinion, to reaffirm our town's commitment to ensuring that all of our constituents can use this. All of our trail using constituents can use this and not just one constituency. So about halfway through the RUAC, I presented an update to the board, maybe 2022, stuff thereabouts. And we essentially passed a resolution that I think everybody wrote roll and sign because you weren't here. But
I would have signed it otherwise.
But it basically said, we're reaffirming our commitment to ensuring that all of our trail using constituents are able to use Topsham's portion of this trail, because that's really the only piece that we have any say over. We don't have say over the rails, that's owned by the state, but we do have say over the access points. We have to approve DOT if they come in with heavy equipment to travel across our roads. So there's some steps there that I think, you know, if push comes to shove, we can use as leverage, but ultimately I don't want it to come to shove or push. I think just getting a resolution out now that we can pass along DOT and the keep saying RUAC, it's not the RUAC anymore, it's the Trailblazers. That essentially reflects some of those original intent, and this is a new board clearly, so we have, you know, we're not bound by previous resolutions, so. My desire is to basically say something along the lines of the town of Topsham reaffirms its commitment to providing all users access to whatever comes out of or whatever comes of the portion of the lower road railroad. Hold on, I'm thinking on the fly here. Mark, you taking notes?
I am.
All right.
And you want to also include motorized vehicles to make it very specific,
Yep,
because, you know, just general that we want motorized vehicles.
and horses.
And horses. So snowmobiles, ATVs, UTVs, horses, whatever the townspeople want to use.
Yeah.
And I had made a suggestion when they came to speak to us that maybe we could do alternating days. That, so, you know, one day on the weekend would be motorized and one weekend would be walking in baby carriages and however they want to do that. Just as a, and I plan to go to the Topsham meeting to say that.
Nice. The baby carriage thing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they tried to guilt us into the baby carriage thing.
So I will say that the Sunrise Trail, which is billed as one of the most successful multi-use trails in the state, which is down east, is 100% multi-use. They have cyclists, pedestrians, ATV users, all driving and walking and biking at the exact same time. And to my knowledge, there has never been an incident.
Is it heavily used?
Heavily, yes. Yeah, it's along the Bold Coast down east.
Yeah.
Beautiful. There's also multi-use up in Brownville, in Greenville, that are all 100% multi-use. There are not accidents that, to my knowledge, I mean, I don't read the really local news up there. But I would think that something like that would make PPH or at least the BDN, if there were some kind of collision on one of those trails. So I guess my point is, it's being done in this state right now. We have 96 feet on our portion of the tracks. I think you could probably fit a little bit of multi-use in there and not have to worry about a collision, even though you've been in Brownville, the trail is maybe from Mark to me. I mean, and they still somehow get away with that without fatalities, you know, go figure.
So it is absolutely possible to do.
So do we have to maintain these trails at all, or is it maintained by the state?
I think DOT would be required to maintain them because it is state land. But probably not in the winter. And our local ATV club maintains miles and miles of trails, including grooming trails in the winter for not just snowmobiles, but also for cross-country skiers who use the ATVs trails all the time. So they would be an exceptional addition, I think, for maintenance, in my opinion. But it's a good question. But yeah, I think the state would be on the hook for obviously grading. If it does get paved, they would have to repave it eventually. I'm not sure how access or parking would go because that's our property. So I'm not sure how much we'd be on the hook for, like if we created a new parking lot. Hopefully aliens don't visit, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know how much of that we would be responsible for. That's a really good
I
question.
don't know.
I don't think it's been determined yet. It's probably up to negotiation.
Yeah, some good cost sharing, right? So I guess ultimately in sum, I'd like to get something in writing, Mark, since we don't actually have something in writing that we can all sign off on. Would this have to be for next meeting or how would that work?
Which I guess it wouldn't hurt if it was, because I was gonna say, if we did it. We had something tonight, we could present it at the forum on the 29th. But it's not like that's a magic date, they're not gonna take comment after that, so
Right.
we could put something together for the next meeting.
How long is this trail, the total in Topsham?
It would go the entire length of the railroad tracks that start at the Black Bridge, over by the Merrimack Bridge. It would go all the way through town up to a boat, yeah.
The Cannons River where it crosses. Yep.
I mean, one thing I suspect may come up at the meeting on the 29th is some of the people who live along the railroad tracks are probably gonna say. We're okay with quiet uses, but we're not sure we want loud snowmobiles, ATVs, whatever. Maybe it won't happen, I don't know, but that
Is
may,
this the same track that goes along Catton's Road?
yeah, and it goes back behind like.
Because a lot of
Madeline
those
Drive,
houses
but-
are far away from the trail.
Yeah, there's a bunch of folks in Bowden who are bringing this up during the RUAC, and I guess my response would be, don't buy a house next to railroad tracks. I mean, that's it's as simple as that.
Like people buying houses near a shooting range.
And I'm not arguing one way or the other.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
It's like, that may be something that comes up. That there may be people supportive of quiet uses of the tracks, but not so supportive of loud uses of tracks.
Yeah.
And can we restrict that? Can we say, you know, this is what we want to support this section. And going through Topsham, they might just say it's our property, we don't get to say.
DOT has that right.
Right, so we can make up the wording for what we really want and stress that we want multi-use. But I'm not sure that we have any authority to make them comply just because it's going through Topsham.
No, I mean, our only leverage is, you know, where people can park, where people can access it, if there's some kind of maintenance agreement. And I mean, if we really wanted to get nasty, we could just, you know, not allow them to use heavy trucks on our roads. But it's not gonna come to that. But I'm just saying, we do have some leverage, but ultimately, this is DOT's decision to make. And it's being informed by the Trailblazers Roadshow right now. There were 3 DOT staff members on the RUAC. One of them retired recently. The lead guy, or if he hasn't retired, he's retiring like very soon this year. So a lot of that institutional memory is not necessarily going to be there at the state level, because most of the work for that RUAC was done by a company called VHB. It was a contractor for DOT. So I guess,
I'm assuming that all the snowmobile clubs, like from Bodenham and from Topsham, will be willing to give public input.
they have been, yep, yeah, they've, our club's been attending every single one of those meetings, our TTR, Topsham's club. But yeah, I guess what it really boils down to me is I don't like having the use policy dictated by one group, which it is right now. I mean, there's no reason for them to be dictated. It's,
They're deciding
they're one.
for the whole, what a few want.
Correct, yeah.
I understand.
So. I guess
ask any of your comments, right?
Yeah. So Mark, how'd you like to proceed? You want me to write something up for next meeting?
Probably good.
Yeah, do that, we can wordsmith it, you don't need me,
You can send it to all of us and we could just give an okay, so you could use it at the meeting.
is that legit?
You don't wanna go back and forth.
It's not a
on the
policy.
Email, but if you.
It's either a yes or no.
Yeah, Dak would have
It just has to be a yes or a no.
Okay. I'll make sure I don't screw anything up or misspell any words.
But I don't think it hurts either to submit it after it's not like they're gonna close public comment on the 29th, so you could always. Have it in your next meeting discuss.
It just would be nice to have select board representation at the meeting at the library.
Which you can certainly do anyway, you know, go and speak. I mean, there may be a compromise to be reached in that. I mentioned to Jenny Little, the trail writers, is that I don't know. If there's particular sections that are more important than others, because it would help connect existing trails, so maybe there's certain areas that it gets used by everything, so that to help with the trail connections, but not necessarily the whole thing.
Well, you know, there are not gonna be a lot of baby carriages in the wintertime and the snowmobilers wanna use it. And if they say no snowmobilers, that just doesn't even make any sense. Because nobody's out walking in 12 inches of snow.
Fat tire bikers,
What's that?
fat tire bikers.
Cross
Oh,
country
really?
skiers.
They,
Yeah, they're-
And Brunswick actually plows
Cross-country
its
skiing.
path, and
But
it's
if it's not-
heavily used in the winter too.
if it's not, what do you call that, groomed, then they can't really. So,
I mean, how long are we away from this even being a potential to coming to fruition?
Well, there's a bond that we're all voting on in November to fund this.
It's supposedly, it's gonna go before this next legislative section to get approval, or DOT's gonna try to get approval to at least get the legal authority to make it happen. May not be the same thing.
I think it's silly that we wouldn't. Honestly, I mean, if you wanna walk, if you wanna bike, if you wanna run. And recreate, you have a bike path that's paved. That connects Topsham all the way through Brunswick, and there's quite a bit. You also have roads with shoulders. That have motorized vehicles on it, and you feel perfectly safe walking on those roads. I don't see why we wouldn't do the same for. The recreation off the roads. But I agree, in certain sections, there might be some sections that. Like the tunnel, for example, how that's gonna be the hardest thing, because it's narrow, and how are you gonna get. People through that? I don't think you really need to.
No, it wouldn't make sense for ATV access to go beyond that bridge, just
Right.
because, there's nothing,
Unless they wanna get to the Topsham Fair grounds.
or the old trestle.
Yeah.
That would be fun, right?
But I mean, sections like that, I think are important to look at, but. I haven't walked the entire length. I know it goes behind Arbor. And some of those neighborhoods, in that neighborhood, it is right against the back side of people's houses. I don't know if there's trails that can be parallel or in conjunction to cut certain sections off, like you were referring to potentially. I think that might be a good compromise to people. But if not, then, I mean, I would be in favor of all. It's not an all or nothing for me. It's all or most is good, or wherever we can is also good.
Yeah, that's not even a choice, unfortunately, at least in my eyes, not in yours, but it's gonna happen, it's just a matter of, how many wheels are squeaky enough to rise to the top of pile of wheels. To make a difference in DOT's decision making.
So for tonight,
I have homework. Table it.
so basically.
No action
This
tonight.
basically, you're doing this and we'll come back.
Yeah.
Okay. Get that?
I get it, thank you.
All right, so no action on that one. And wait, item 2486, consideration of any appropriate action on an Estable.
Yeah, stop.
Certificate for the original Highland and Frost Street test.
So the portion of the Highlands that sits between Elm Street and the bypass is being sold now for the second time. It was last sold in 2015. And what the attorneys for the buyers are looking for this certificate, which essentially says that we're not in any disputes with Highlands, we're not fighting over the TIF. They're current in their taxes, and they are. I checked with Ed yesterday, and we do have the tax payments in for both TIFs. And so we're looking for authority for me to sign this and basically say they're in good standing, so it'll help with their sale going forward.
So how did we lose the back pages in the,
Right, I know.
The agreement,
so
yeah,
doesn't there someone else, another half to this agreement, that is it someplace else that someone might have these pages?
they're the ones that first found they were missing it.
Oh, okay,
And then, so then I looked in our records to try to find it, and then we don't have a paper copy, there was electronic copies.
and the back pages were.
And it looks like when
Right,
someone
yeah.
scanned it, at one point it was printed double-sided, but then scanned single-sided.
Single-sided. Mhm.
So we had a draft, which is the one that was, which is like the final draft, but it's not the executed version. But, so the way to fix that is we could, all of us re-sign it. Or they haven't asked for that at this point, but everyone's just been following it, no one's had any questions, and the TIF's actually, I don't think that one's in existence much.
What typically is on those missing pages?
It just,
Just signatures?
or I think, I can't, it's more the, it was part of the credit enhancement agreement, so just kind of the terms of the TIF, but. It's, they actually contacted DECD to see if they had a copy, they didn't either, so
With the lawyer who, was there a lawyer involved?
this long before my time, so these TIFs are, these, the last changes were like 2005.
With the law firm. So what's the tip for?
So there's a TIF for the original Highlands that. It was originally John Wazalewski's company that got it back in the early 2000s. And then when they did the Frost Street one, that one was added. It's, the TIF was to help pay for the development of, or encourage development of the Highlands.
Is the new buyer accepting the same terms of the TIF?
Exactly.
So is there, what would be? I'm trying to word this the right way. What if we voted it down and said, no, you have to apply for a new TIF? Would there be, what's a positive and negative on that?
And that's not what tonight's request is. It's basically just to say they're in good standing on the TIF, because we don't really have a right to block them.
Okay.
You
The
could,
selling agent is in good standing.
right, you could refuse to certify they're in good standing, but the seller and buyer could still.
Okay,
transfer the
that's
TIF if
clear,
they wanted.
that's all I needed was that we're just making sure that the buyer wants to make sure that they're in good standing.
Yeah.
But when the buyer takes over that, they're gonna have the same benefit of the TIF that the other people, the sellers had.
Exactly.
Even though we didn't make the agreement with the buyer, we made the agreement with two previous owners ago.
Because they've assigned their rights under the agreement.
Got it.
And there was nothing in the agreement that prohibited assignment.
Got it, okay. It's all new, I just had to ask.
Oh, that's fine. So basically, just looking for the authority for me to say they're paid up, there's no disputes, they're in good standing.
We have a motion.
Sure. I make a motion to authorize the town manager to execute on behalf of the town the estoppel certificate for the sale of the Highlands.
Second.
Brian, seconded by. Mr. Nixon.
Got it.
All in favor of the motion? Motion carries.
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Being good at this.
Second.
Seconded. We are adjourned.
Boom.
So,